Hey everyone, it's Father Dave again. It's Saturday the 28th of March. And last night, our Holy Father, Pope Francis, gave an extraordinary Urbi et Orbi address, meaning an address to the city of Rome and to the world. And it was there in an empty St. Peter's Square, where normally great crowds would gather to listen to him speak. It's a very strange and surreal sight, something that kind of an image or defines the strangeness of the times that we're in. But I want to really recommend that you try to read his whole address. But I wanted to share some of his thoughts and excerpts of that address with you today. And he was referring to the scripture passage from Mark's Gospel in the 4th chapter, where Jesus is in the boat with the disciples on the Sea of Galilee, and a storm comes up, and the disciples are afraid of perishing. And there Jesus is, sound asleep in the boat. Okay? And our Holy Father says, we find ourselves just like these disciples, afraid and lost. Like the disciples in the Gospel, we were caught off guard by an unexpected, turbulent storm. We have realized that we are on the same boat, all of us, fragile and disoriented, but at the same time important and needed. All of us called to row together, each of us in need of comforting the other. On this boat are all of us. Just like those disciples who spoke anxiously with one voice, saying, "We are perishing," so we too have realized that we cannot go on thinking of ourselves, but only together can we do this. This time of crisis is a time of solidarity, a time where we realize that this is our shared home, our planet, our nation, our communities. Everything that we do affects one another. And so we're all in this together, and we want to help one another through it. The disciples see that Jesus is asleep, and then they go to rouse him, to wake him up, and they say, "Teacher, do you not care if we perish?" Right? From the depths of their hearts and out of their fear, their first reaction is to say, Jesus must not care. He must be disinterested in them. Right? And Jesus calms the wind and the waters, and then he reproaches the disciples by saying, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" It's very strange, right? Why are you afraid? Have you no faith? And they're thinking that he doesn't care, right? So what the Holy Father says is that this storm exposes our vulnerability and uncovers those false and superfluous certainties around which we have constructed our daily schedules, our projects, our habits and priorities, right? We realize we're in a desperate state. All those things that we surround us ourselves with to comfort us or to give us a sense of security, they mean nothing anymore. And then there's this deep internal sense of panic that we're not cared for, right? And Jesus says to that, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" Holy Father continues with a prayer, responding to Jesus' question, "Why are you afraid? Have you no faith?" Lord, your word this evening strikes us and is directed towards us, all of us. In this world that you love more than we do, we have gone ahead at breakneck speed, feeling powerful and able to do anything, greedy for profit. We let ourselves get caught up in things and lured away by haste. We did not stop at your reproach to us. We were not shaken awake by wars or injustice across the world, nor did we listen to the cry of the poor or of our ailing planet. We carried on regardless, thinking we would stay healthy in a world that was sick. Now that we are in a stormy sea, we implore you, wake up, Lord. Why are you afraid? Have you no faith? Lord, you are calling to us, calling us to faith, which is not so much believing that you exist, but coming to you and trusting in you. This Lent your call reverberates urgently. Be converted. Return to me with all your heart. You are calling on us to seize this time as a time of choosing, It is not the time of your judgment, but of our judgment, a time to choose what matters and what passes away, a time to separate what is necessary from what is not. It is a time to get our lives back on track with regard to you, Lord, and to others. That question of Jesus, do we trust him? Why are we afraid? Do we not have faith in him? Is one in this time that strikes our hearts and calls us to radically reorient our lives around what is most important, what truly matters. Holy Father continues speaking about how faith is when we realize that we need Jesus, we need salvation. We're not self-sufficient. By ourselves, we founder. We need the Lord like ancient navigators needed the stars. And he tells us, let us invite Jesus into the boats of our lives. Let us hand over our fears to him so that he can conquer them. Like the disciples, we will experience that with him on board there will be no shipwreck, because this is God's strength, turning to the good everything that happens to us, even the bad things. He brings serenity into our storms, because with God, life never dies. This is our Lenten journey, knowing that though Jesus seems asleep, he will reawaken, he will arise in the resurrection. The Holy Father says we have an anchor. By the cross of Jesus we have been saved. We have a rudder. By his cross we have been redeemed. We have a hope. By his cross we have been healed and embraced, so that nothing and no one can separate us from his redeeming love. Friends, we're called to embrace this cross with Jesus, and that means in our daily life to find the courage to embrace all the hardships of this present time, to embrace it together with Jesus, inviting him to be in our boat in all. He will not abandon us. The Holy Father concluded his remarks saying, Lord, you ask us not to be afraid, yet our faith is weak and we are fearful. But you, Lord, will not leave us at the mercy of the storm. Tell us again, do not be afraid. And we, together with Peter, cast all our anxieties unto you, for you care about us. Praying for you. God bless you. Don't hesitate to reach out if we can be of any service to you.